welcome to the Open Mic Comedy Podcast. I'm your host, Mark. If this is your first time here, welcome. If you're a returning listener, welcome back. This podcast is here for everybody on the open mic comedy circuit, whether you're a comedian, an MC, a promoter, or a tutor. Hey, even comedy fans who really enjoy watching the stars of the future in those danky pub basements. If you're thinking I could do that, then this podcast will guide you on what to expect on this crazy circuit from those right in the middle of it. Today's guest is someone who doesn't live their life by motivational quotes, was misinformed about internet acronyms, and definitely isn't a fan of a brunch and munch. He is a writer, producer, director, and on top of all of that, a comedian. Please welcome to the stage, Mr. Tevin Everett. Hello, sir. How are you?
I'm great. Love that intro. That is top 10.
So we were speaking before we came on air, as they say in the business, and that you have more of a history than just comedy.
Yes. Yeah. Very true.
So
I've been around.
How's that happened? Has it been a case of you've gone from, explain what your background is first, I guess.
Okay. So I'm coming over from LA. I'm American, obviously. And I was in the military when I was younger. Then I went from military to writer, director, / comic in LA to now writer, director, comedian in London. So
that's quite a strange journey to go on.
Yeah, you know what? It is a bit of a journey. I think I was always creative. My mom will say I wrote a play when I was like 12. And it was I called it a play. So it wasn't it wasn't Shakespeare, but I think I always had the creative thing in me, and I've always been a storyteller. Once you get into writing, that storytelling at its peak form, and then once you want to kind of practice the jokes, you go to a stand-up here at the Hollywood Comedy, or you go to a stand-up at the Comedy Store. It's just a nice open mic, and the next, before you know it, because comedy to me is storytelling in its purest form, right? So it's So yeah, I think I and now I just I'm just doing it. I'm here.
So going from the Navy, that's how. So you're in the Navy and then you've left the Navy, and now it's a case of, right, I need to write something. I need to get these creative juices because they've been kind of suppressed for a while. Would that be fair to say?
You know what? I wouldn't even say that, because even my job in the Navy, I was intel, and the job of intel is more to complete the story, right? It's what's going on here. What are we missing? How can we find the threats, the vulnerabilities, the people that we're looking for, all the stuff like that. And so I think when it was crossing out of the Navy, and I didn't know what I was going to do, I ended up getting accepted into UCLA, their screenwriting program, and I was just like, well, okay. And once you get in and realize now I'm just writing stories about my escapades, it's like, people give you money for this? I didn't even know you could get paid for this. I'll do this forever, and so I think I think storytelling has always been a quintessential part of my being, even in all the jobs I've worked in, and now I'm just doing it, I think, very much at a basic level, but I'm doing it a lot more yet. So it's always there. There was a through line.
Yeah. So how long have you actually been doing stand-up for then?
I've been doing stand-up since I've been doing it for 3 years, since about December of 2021, and now we're in 2020. So coming up on 3 years. Started in LA, and once you leave, you got to reset. And the hard part about being a writer is sometimes, obviously, if that's what's paying the bills, you have to take longer breaks away from the stage than you would want to. So it's been 3 years, but London time, I've just started here in London since like February. So
okay.
Mm-hmm.
So how does LA and London comedy scene differ then at this level?
You know what? And I don't want to seem like I'm talking down on anyone or anything. No. I just think the level of comedy. Well, okay, the audiences are very different in London versus America versus LA, and the people who will be in these open mic nights are also very different. So there's a lot more managers or promoters or people looking for to see if you have something that are in these open mic nights than I feel like than are around LA or than are around London. So I feel like the quality of comedy that is brought to these nights is is a lot higher because these are people who are like, no, I want to get signed tomorrow. I'm not here to really practice my craft. I want to be done, you know?
Yeah. This is
Yeah.
their kind of, it's not the audition. It's their trial for a football club or a football team.
Exactly. So they're like, I'm bringing my best 5. You rarely see someone do the same 5 in LA. Where as far as here, I feel like a lot of times you'll see the same 5s over and over and over and over and over again, and you're like, okay, that's very hard. It was a lot harder for me to adjust to. Um, I still don't. You'll rarely see me do the same 5, but it's like it was just very different. It's just different. It's different. But I think in LA, you're so much closer that, to that, what is it? To basically what you're trying to achieve. Like, you're, like, right there on the end of it. So you're like, okay, by the time you're actually coming out to the open mics, you are already like, I need that. I'm trying to get this Netflix special, you know, and you never know who's the kid that is working and it's LA, right? So you never know who's working at Netflix, but sitting in the crowd because his friends bought them, and they're like, "Oh no, I'm the comedy producer for Netflix." I've seen so many stories happen like that, and you're just like, "Oh, okay, great."
Yeah,
yeah,
that's interesting. Yeah. So it's the LA scene's more refined because I guess, well, not that I've seen or heard about in London, is that if somebody's looking to get signed by an agent or something, it's going to be the agent or probably making contact with the person via their social medias to find out where they're performing to go and see them in a full show at some point live, rather than the expectation of walking into a I don't know, a pub basement and going, hey, there is somebody who writes for Comedy Central who thinks they could do something, and you kind of.
Yeah. Well, with LA also, you got to think everyone has ideas, and everyone. So if you're waiting until these people have shows, they already have agents and managers, and they have acting coaches. They have everything, so they're not even. You got to catch that new, fresh idea, that new perspective so early on. If you want to be, because everybody wants to be first. It's like, oh no, I discovered him in a basement here. Like, that's their mentality. It's a lot of fun.
It's like when you go to see a band that you've never heard of, and then 5 years later, they're smashing it out in a stadium. And you're like, I saw them in a room of 200 people.
Exactly. But yeah, that's.
I was going to say, how do acts differ as well? Are they much more serious in America? Because I get we were both on Comedy Incorporated a couple of weeks ago, and the first act was a guy called Yogi Bell. And Yogi's act is alternative, I think is a word to describe it as. He's not standing up there telling a story using sentences and stuff. It's the way he does it. And you've got Richard Walford as well, who comes on with the little shopping trolley that plays music.
Yep.
Do you get that in? Do you get that in America?
Nowhere in America are they doing prop comedy or alternative. I didn't even see one until I came here for the first time, and it was very shocking to me because I was just like, and I'm not taking anything away from anyone. I'm a storytelling comic, right? Like, I'm I'll stand and give me a mic. That's all I need. And I can appreciate that prop comedy and alternative comedy are funny for some people, but that it would never fly in America. It's definitely been interesting.
I always thought I never. You see silly comedy and think, oh yeah, but I know what I am. I'm more of the storyteller kind of anecdote type thing as well. But sometimes when you see an act like Yogi or Richard or whoever doing prop comedy and stuff, you kind of, it's a nice break.
Yeah, no, you know
from
what?
Seeing the same thing, and you're like, that you start to understand it looks silly, so it comes across as childish. You actually realize how talented some of these people are under the skin to do what they do and how they do it and how they convey it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the only thing that sometimes gets to me is that I feel like there's just not a story sometimes. Sometimes there's just a guy up there just like doing stuff. I think I could be down with it if there's actually like a story in it. Like, I've seen those prop comics or those comedians where there was like a story through they're telling a story with everything. I think Richard kind of did that a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think when people are just up there just doing stuff, it's a little harder for me to turn my brain off in a way and get down with it, you know. But I agree, it's talented. You know, they're getting the time. I mean, it takes talent to put yourself through all that and to change completely. Because I think I met Yogi after, and I was like, bro, I don't even recognize you now. Like that was a very. I think I walked right by him, and it was like, hey, and so it's interesting. It's interesting.
Yeah. I guess it's very, very different to where you've come from in terms of the background and stuff and what you've seen and what you know. Because I've said it before on here is that I didn't really appreciate what open mic comedy was until I got into it. I didn't know it even actually existed. My thing of comedy was seeing the bigger shows and Netflix specials and stuff like that. And you'd have the occasional trip out to the comedy store that you would go and see some people, but you're still paying money for it. Whereas on the open mic level, obviously people aren't getting paid and you're not paying to see people. So it's a very different level. And I guess there's not many other places where you can try and practice your craft live in front of people.
Yeah, constantly. Yeah. No, it's definitely it's an interesting thing. It's a fun community.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what pushed you into the actual stand-up side in terms, I assume you were a writer and everything beforehand. So you've gone from behind the camera or behind the notepad to in front on the stage.
You know what's really funny is I had just gotten into writing comedies, and I had just written my first TV show called Diversity Hires. And my mom, who I love so much, she kind of told me she didn't think I was funny. And I really wanted to prove to her that I was funny. So I had just like looked up an open mic, right? With no really background, but I was like, I think I can do this. Booked 5 minutes, and in LA it's pay to play, so you have to pay your little like $5 or $8, but you get stage time.
Okay.
And I remember it was after a film festival. I told my mom, I was like, hey, I have a surprise. And I took my mom and my ex-girlfriend, I took everybody at the time, and we went to the Hollywood Comedy, which is, if you're ever in LA, that's a good staple to go to work some jokes out at.
Okay.
And I just crushed it. And I don't think I had ever felt anything like that. And I've been in the military, I've caught bad guys, I've done so many things. I never felt a rush like crushing a 5 minute, like just absolutely crushing it.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, I think I want to do this forever. And luckily enough for me, there was again a manager in the back that was like, yo, you have something, kid. And he brought me to another show, and then I got started putting on these fun LA shows. So it was a good time. It was a good time. But yeah, so my mom's offhanded comment got me into stand up.
It's that I'm going to prove you wrong.
Yeah, it was that. It was exactly that. I remember like it was yesterday. She's like, "You're not really my funny kid. Like I don't think funny when I think of you." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool. Writing comedy is not enough, Mom. We're gonna do that. We're gonna sort this."
So you've been doing this for 3 years now, then. And what's brought the move over to London then from LA?
Oh well, so I was a writer, and we went on strike.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so when we went on strike, my agent calls me and he's like, "Hey, there's an opportunity for you to work on a show out in London. They're not on strike or whatever if you want to." And yeah, I was like, absolutely. Like I want to come check it out. I got out here, and you guys don't have guns. Your cops don't have guns. Most of the criminals don't have guns. The racist people don't have guns. No one has guns. So I was like, I think I'm staying, guys. Like I think I'll figure it out from here. That show was a horrible experience. And I won't bad talk it, but it's not for me. But once I started doing comedy and started seeing how the crowd reacted, because I came out here before, and I'll save that for later because I think you ask a question that hits on my worst comedy experience. So I'll save that for later. But I had come out to London before, and I stayed for like a few months, but it didn't feel like home. But this time when I came out, I was like, yeah, no, I think I'm staying.
Yeah. So this is going to be the new home for you.
Yeah, pretty sure.
Cool. So you said your mum told you weren't very funny. Can you remember, as a child or as an adult, the very first joke you ever told?
As a child, I think I always had a fondness for dad jokes. Right. So
Mm.
the very first joke I ever told, it was about, and I was like a teenager. I think I was like 13. And I still, honestly, I keep this joke forever. I'll find a way to make it actually funny. But it was about a guy. It said a guy walks into a bar with with a head of a floating head, and it's the floating head's 21st birthday. So they give him a shot, and he drinks the shot, and out pops the body, right? And then they give him another shot, and out pops some hands, and he's like, "Oh, can I just have one more shot?" And the bartender's like, "I don't know. You should really check your limits. You haven't drank before. This is new." And he's like, "I think I just need some legs, man. I need one more." And he gives him another shot, and he explodes. Right, the guy explodes, and then the bartender goes, "He should have stopped him when he was ahead." I used to tell that joke everywhere, every family event. I thought it was so funny. I thought it was so funny. That was the first joke I ever told, and it was it's
I like it. I like it.
yeah. It just doesn't, it's very funny. I snuck it into some screenplays and some. I have had kids saying it in scripts, but I love it. It's still one of my favorite jokes. So but I just can't really. It's not my type of comedy to stand on stage and try to tell that joke,
I see when you're talking about that, I was second guessing what was going to be the punchline, as we all do eventually at some point.
Yeah.
And I thought we were going to go down legless. So, there's something in there for that as well.
Yeah, maybe, you know what? Maybe we just got to do a writing session real quick and get to it.
You can walk in with twins. One's got a full body and one's just a head. And so they morph.
It will sort itself.
Yeah.
It's genius. Genius.
One becomes legless and one should have stayed when they were ahead. It's just, see, I love this stuff. It makes me happy. It makes me smile. And even hearing like pun one-liner jokes and stuff, the silly jokes, I love them. Everything has its place in comedy. And like I mentioned before, the talent that some people have just to come up with something and how to deliver it as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Delivery is 90%. I think the joke writing is just 10%. It's how you say it, when you say it, where you say it, where your body's positioned when you say it. It's so many different things that come with, telling jokes, but it's all talent. It's all talent.
Yeah, there's that level of there's a level of confidence that you portray on the stage. If you portray confidence to an audience, then the audience will immediately think, this guy knows what he's doing, or this girl knows what they're doing, and then kind of relaxes and going, okay, this is going to be fun. Because I watched your Blackout video. Obviously, it's because where I got half the intro from. And you can see the way you are patrolling around the stage, and you're referencing people in the audience and the previous act. And I think there's something else that went on that didn't quite get caught on camera. You're in the room and you're in the moment with the audience living that experience. And I think that's really good to see. And it's a really good thing for anybody that's like 10 gigs in to watch something like that and watch how somebody owns that stage without being arrogant.
Exactly.
Without saying, look at me. We're in this together. I'm going to make you laugh. Come along for the ride. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, there's a really great comic in LA gave me advice before, because he said I would talk at the audience, just trying to get you're a storyteller, I'm trying to get my story out. And he was like, you need to make sure everyone in that crowd, even if they don't drink, wants to get a drink with you. He's like, that's the key. You want the men to want to get a drink with you. You want the women to want everyone to feel like you're at a picnic and you just want to have a drink. And it was pretty great advice, and it's pretty funny stuff. So yeah, Niles absence is pretty great.
That's a really nice way of putting it, actually.
Yeah.
I did a Blackout, and I got chucked off at dead on 2 minutes. No. And the problem was I went off at the point that I went off. People were laughing, and it was a really bizarre feeling. It's like I've got half the audience laughing, but all of a sudden the 3 lights have just gone bang, 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 gone, and I'm like, oh, okay, what's gone on? And I'm like, is that for real? It was like I literally stood there for it felt like 5-6 seconds, really long, but it was probably there for a second, and went microphone in and walked out. And I had people coming up to me after going, "What was the next line? I want to know."
Yeah,
just
comedy.
Like, I can't help it.
Competitions are
people
weird.
With the cards.
Yeah, they're weird. They're a weird space. And you know what? I've done my share of gong shows. Now it's rare. Actually, I'm not like bragging or anything, but if I do a gong show, I know I'm getting through the gong at least. And then I've been winning a couple lately, but it's more. But when I first started, I was not doing that, and we keep slipping into this worst moment on stage, but it was
Let's go for it. Come on, give it to us.
I think when I first came over here, I thought I was funny, dude. I thought I was hot. Can I swear on here? Sorry, I don't want to.
You can swear as much as you want.
Oh, I thought I was hot shit. Which I thought I was the man in LA, and I came over here and I did my very first British gig was the King Gong, at the Comedy Store. Dude, I brought all my friends. I was like, no, bro, I'm gonna kill it. Like I never miss. Like all my friends are like, yeah, like come do it, and then so. Dude, it was so bad. I opened my mouth and they were like, boo, he's American. Right? And I was like, all right, well, and then I tried to the problem was there's a shift when you come over here. You have to rework your jokes to say things in a British way. You can say things, it's weird. You can say things a lot more, I don't know, just American. Like you can use certain words. You can say like bitch and stuff. You can reference certain things, like even the N word, just stuff you can say in America. You just can't really say here. And I didn't know that. And I assumed that no one liked my comedy. And I was like, well, I didn't do comedy for like 7 months after that. I was like, not till I go back to America and I'm in a safe space because this is insane. And it was the worst showing I've ever had on a comedy night. That was my worst experience. Yeah, that was my. Yeah, and so that was my gong. So I was just like, I can't. I'm just not. I thought so low in myself too at that moment. Until my best friend, her name's Alexa. She was just like, "You got to get back on stage, man. Like you were, So I got to go. I went back to America. Did some really small clubs in San Diego. Like I didn't even go back to LA right away. And then I eventually went to LA. Then came over to Philly. Did a bunch of shows in Philly. It was a really like. I was like, all right. Well, now I was like, next time I'm in London, I'm gonna win these guys over. I'm not gonna let them do that to me again. Yeah, and now I'm pretty solid on the jokes point on that. But it was bad. It was bad.
Yeah. For anybody that's not got into open mic or wants to, don't make King Gong your first joke, your first gig, because if you do that, you're probably never gonna do. You're either gonna be either being signed the next day, or you're probably never gigging for another 6 months because you will feel so in the bin.
It was so bad. I've just never experienced that. I didn't even know crowds could be like that. That's why I was like, oh, this is crazy. And I've been heckled before, but I've never been heckled by 400 people at the same time. It was
that's the thing. That's the especially again, anybody who's new that's listening to this. Your average open mic night is going to be 20 to 50 people.
Mm-hmm.
And you walk into a room of 400 and their task is just to keep what they think is the best and get rid of the worst as quickly as possible. If you're not the best immediately, you're out.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was, it wasn't. I wasn't the best either that night. Some really funny people won, of course, but I was like, I didn't even want to stay. I just felt so. It was a lot. It was a lot.
Yeah,
that's my trauma.
I think a lot of people go to King Gong because I don't know if it still goes on. I know it used to. Sometimes you get sort of semi-professionals doing it as well. So it's probably a little bit more of a step up from open mic. It's a 100+ open micer,
but it's also advertised as an open mic. It should not be advertised as an open mic. It should be like, no, this is like, don't do this if you're 10 gigs and under or 50 gigs and under. Don't do this until you have a perfect set. That was a lot. Yeah.
It's that type of night where it can, I guess it can make or break you, but you gong shows are harsh at the best of times, but that one, I mean, I've heard a story a friend of mine told me is that somebody came down all the way from Birmingham in the UK down to London to do this, and they were a musical act. got on stage, started tuning their guitar, and they didn't say a word, and they were out.
Yeah,
they've done a 250-mile round trip for probably 4 seconds on a stage, and you're just like, that's not
brutal.
And the thing is, if that person had come on stage and said, "Hi, it's great to be here. I've come all the way down from Birmingham today." They have people in the audience would just get rid of him for the sake of it.
Yeah,
that's what they'll do. They're just like, we'll make his life hell. We're going to do it. Get rid of him. No, give him a chance.
Yeah, they don't care in there. They're drunk. I think all the alcohol is discounted. I think they're going after it. And it's not, you know what? It's not comedy fans that go in it. It's rarely that it's comedy fans that actually go into the Comedy Store here. That's something that's very different than in LA or even in like New York. Here, because if you're going there, you're going to see comedy. You're hoping Dave Chappelle comes in. You're going to do. Here, it's much more like, oh, I'm just a tourist. I was walking by Piccadilly, needed something to do. I'm not like a comedy fan. I'm just going to pop in. So now you're getting drunk tourists that are just like, let's get rowdy. It was a lot. Yeah, it's a lot. Don't do that, Mike, until you're ready, guys. Until you're really ready.
I think a lot of I think this is how it used to work. I'm not sure if it still does. Is that sometimes if you won King Gong, your prize would to be doing a 10 or a 15 middle set at the Comedy Store on a weekend.
Yep.
So you get the level of people that are going on to King Gong just to do those sets.
Yes.
And you're talking, you got people that are been in this for 10 years that are still doing King Gong just to see if they can get a comedy store set at a weekend.
Yeah.
So when you're 10 in, don't do it yourself.
Yeah. You got to really understand the crowd.
So have you gone back there?
You know what? Not yet. I need to. I've won almost every other Gong show now. When I applied, I just didn't get booked yet, and I guess you can go like basically wait for them to say, does anyone in the crowd want to try, and then try to get on, which would be nice. But I'd rather have like a spot when I go, you know.
I tell you what, I wonder if you were in the crowd and they made the announcement of, if anybody wants to come on from the crowd, if you're going to have that buy-in from people already because you're part of them rather than the comedian.
Yes. Yeah. It's a little easier, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it would be. But so flipping it then, what's the best moment you've had on stage?
Best moment I've had on stage. There's been two recently. One, the best moment was winning Big Belly a couple weeks ago. The Big Belly Ding Dong competition. I think it was the first time where most of the acts weren't very good. It just wasn't a very good night for people, and people had paid money to come see it, so they were just waiting for like anyone to just a little bit decent, please. And I went up there and I started telling jokes, and I think that response from the crowd was just so. I got like a standing ovation twice. It was crazy. And that was by far, I was like, yeah, okay, that is awesome. That's just an awesome feeling where it's like, you guys got what you feel like you were coming here for. You deserved it. I was able to deliver on all the jokes, to have the report. And it was a very tough crowd. And when you're American, people don't really realize this. You have to win them over, because as soon as you talk, half the people are like, he's American, he's going to be arrogant, he thinks he's this, he thinks he's that. So you have to spend that time making you feel like, no, I'm a cool American. Like, I'm one of the ones, you know. And then so winning them over, and because they weren't laughing at anyone, they weren't giving anyone anything. And so winning them over and getting them to laugh to the point where they were like standing up and clapping, that was the best feeling I've had. And then second to that was the last time I did the Blackout. The second half of the Blackout was so talented and so like just amazingly high level comics that by the time I went up, we had like 3 people get through crushing it. And I had to like figure out, you have to keep that going, right? You have to like, and the MC wasn't doing it, because normally the MC will bring it down, calm down a little bit, you know, so you don't immediately compare it to the last guy. And then, but the MC was just like, keep the energy going. We're going to give it to the, you know, just bring you up. So having to navigate following someone, and the last dude, his name is Dima. He was so funny. Murdered there wasn't I think people were like tearing up crying. And so for me to follow that and have a little intellectual comedy set and still have people like keep it going to where they're laughing and make it through, I was like, okay, these are the rooms I'm supposed to be in. I'm on the same levels now. I'm feeling like with the really top open micer guys. So now those were two like, okay, I'm doing the right thing moments for me.
Cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think a lot of the time it's an obvious answer to some of this main question of when, the best ones is if somebody's got through a gong show, that's usually the answer. But I don't necessarily think it's always just the getting through a gong show. It's getting through a set or doing a set in front of that many people. Because we're so used to being in front of 10, 20, 30, 40 people, whatever. When you get that opportunity to be in front of 200 as a minimum, you're like, wow, this is different.
Yeah, I mean, very different.
I turned up at the Blackout. I'm notorious for turning up early. I'm an hour early for every gig. So I always get a train from somewhere. So I always have to be prepared that something's going to be cancelled. And I'll be there. And I remember walking into the up the creek and got a little bit of food in a little cafe area at the back. And I looked into the main room and I just started counting rows of chairs and going, right, there's 20 rows there. There's 5 rows back here. There's this over. And you're like, that's like 230 people.
Yeah.
You're like, man. Wow, this is going to be different.
Mm-hmm.
And no matter, because you get that little grace period at the Blackout as well, you get a little bit of chance to enjoy it and you get a chance to feed off the energy that's going on in the room.
Yes.
And everybody's there and there's no empty chairs. There's nobody not sitting in the front row.
People to the side of you, people in front of you. You got to make everyone laugh and everyone feel connected. It's such I love Up the Creek's room. Like that is just such a good room to be in and get some good quality time in. Yeah,
definitely.
It's fun.
So, you've also started your own night.
I have.
Called Secretly Pissed.
Yes. Yeah.
So give us the background.
So Secretly Pissed, very fun concept. It's kind of like Drunk Shakespeare almost, where there's 10 comics. 2 of them have been drinking. They're drunk. And the audience gets to guess which ones are drunk. It's really fun. And we just have a good time when we're there, right? It's because 2 people are drunk, I think the audience gets a little drunker. Everyone's kind of having this rapport. We're back and forth. It's so much fun. I think I just wanted to do something like that I just haven't seen in London. There are some shows like this in LA. There's other Secretly Trash. There's Secretly thing, but I wanted to bring that kind of style of like, okay, even if someone's shit, maybe it's because they're drunk, right? So you're kind of coming to the show for the theme of the show, not necessarily the comics, and I think that's like really fun. And it takes pressure off some of the comedians. Takes pressure off. It never takes pressure off the drunk one, but getting drunk takes pressure off of them. But it takes pressure off the audience to laugh too, because now you're just like, okay, well that one was obviously drunk, But it's very fun. It's very fun. The next one is going to be July 22nd. We have to take a break because I'm going to hit to Brussels here soon. But July 22nd, and it's going to be at Never Forever in Camden or Kentish Town. Yeah, running it in now. So now we're running it. Have you ever done the Slap and Giggle nights? Have you been to those?
Yes. Yeah. I've done the Never Forever one. Yeah.
Yeah. So now we're coming together to kind of do a pro nights and seeing if we're can have some more fun with this and just reach more people and get in better spots, because it used to be at the Cavendish Arms, which is a great venue, and people should obviously go there, but it's a little far, and now we've gotten to the point where we just need more seats. So, which is a great problem to have. And then so now we're doing it at Never Forever, which is going to be fun.
Cool. Yeah. So how drunk does the drunk ones get?
They get pretty wasted. Thankfully the bar gives us a discount because I also have to cover the comics discount. We give them a chance. We give the audience the chance to give him a bucket if they think he's. So it's either if he's bombing or if they think he's about to puke, they can go ahead and say give him a bucket, and someone will come out and be like, and then we'll sort it out at the end. Fortunately, no one has needed a bucket. So they're getting up to the point, but they're not going over it.
Yeah.
So it's pretty fun. Yeah.
So how often is it going on then? What's the aim for it to go? Is it every month or?
So I know, yeah, I'm gonna get it to a point where it's monthly. I am going to be honest. I am not the biggest fan of producing shows.
Mm-hmm.
I'm fine to be on them. I'm fine. I like emceeing them. I think when it comes to like venue, selling tickets, booking comics, all of this stuff, it gets a little murky. Murky is the wrong word. It's just not. It's not my thing. And I've always, even when writing TV shows or directing shows or doing everything, I've always had like a killer producer because that in itself is a talent, you know. And so that's why I'm trying to partner with different guys who I know are producing shows. We want to do the people over there at Slap and Giggle. We want to see if Comedy Incorporated can maybe take one and just see which is the best gel of all of our talents together, you know. But we're going to get it monthly.
Comedy Incorporated in Off the Cuff, Secretly Pissed.
Yeah, that's what it feels like. That's where it should be. And I think looking in August and in September, looking forward, I think we're gonna aim to get at least one or two at Off the Cuff because it's fun. But hopefully, I almost want it to be like I want it to grow into almost like you know how there's a what is that gym? There's a Pure Fitness. There's a gym everywhere. I almost want Secretly Pissed to just be able to go wherever. Like, hey, do this down in Kent. Do this over in, you run a show. Do it over here. Just do the themes and then just spread the knowledge of it.
Yeah. So it's a traveling brand.
A traveling brand, and there's I don't know, maybe one day it becomes its own podcast and people are just talking about it. Yeah,
it'd be good actually after a couple more to get you on to just chat about that entirely for half an hour to give it a little bit of promotion, how people can get involved to watch it and be on it and stuff like that. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. When the time is right, once we get to it, we have a very loyal following. It was very easy to sell to 50 tickets to 2 times. Now we're up to, Never Forever, you can get 80 to 100 people in there. So we're seeing how many people would do that. And then, see if we can, maybe if it gets to a point where people want 2 shows a month, we do one at like Off the Cuff and one at Never Forever. You just want growth. That's all you want from these things. It's just grow on your own, become your own baby,
So what level of comics are you aiming this for as performers?
So I normally grab open micers, open micers or semi-pro, and I'll do one pro act. There's always like someone I know is great, or it's just a great semi-pro guy, and then I was like, okay, you can come on and like headline it. You can be the drunk one if you want to. I know Olivia Lee said she was very interested in doing the next one, the one on the 22nd of July. So we're talking back and forth about that stuff, but it's been a good time. So it's open to everyone. I just have to think you're funny. And I think that's the key on all these gigs. You have to think the person is funny.
Yeah. You know what your audience are like, and you kind of know what your audience are going to enjoy.
Absolutely. Okay. Yeah. We had Jack Scullion open up the last one, and that is if there is ever a place for comedy poetry, it's at Secretly Pissed. It will always have a home there because everyone's already drunk. So half of your mind is like, what the fuck? And then we had Jack. Jack was a drunk comic too. So he was also, it was just so much fun. It was just such a good time.
It's just got me thinking, could you imagine Richard on there? Richard Walford. And everybody in the audience thinking, what's going on?
What's going on? Opening the second half, so everyone's already drunk, and they're just like, how do we get here? Yeah, that would be funny as shit too.
I don't know what you saw of his act, but I've seen him I think 2 or 3 times now. But this last one was the first time I ever saw him turn that little shopping cart into a Hoover. And it just had me. It was just like, it's genius. It's so simple, but it's genius.
I thought it was funny. He was telling a story. I was walking. I do enjoy. Look, I enjoy all comedy when it has a story. So if there's a story that I can follow along, he's breaking out the albums and stuff. I'm like, okay, this is funny. Some stuff also, I think, me personally, being American, I would just never get because I didn't grow up with your pop culture references of like the British pop culture. I'm not really into British politics. I don't know enough to get all of the jokes, but some of them I do get. But I do think a lot of character comedy and prop comedy hinge very specifically on growing up here or knowing British things.
Yeah.
I just figured out what a Lidl was, or a Little, or whatever they're called, like recently. Like I'm just not, I'm trying my best.
So back to your joke writing then.
Mm-hmm.
What would you class as your favorite joke? It doesn't have to be your best joke, your favorite joke, how it came about, and how has it changed, if at all?
My favorite joke is I have a joke I tell where I start off talking about manifestation, and I end up talking about it's a I don't know if you've seen it, but I started off talking about manifestation, or you were at the last comedy. I think I told it, and I started talking about my dad who had dementia,
Yes,
and then I end up somehow talking about racist schizophrenics, right? And then we talk
Yep.
about Kanye West. We
Yep.
got derailed at that one because I was calling Steve racist on accident, but who's not racist? I apologize again, Steve. But it's just the way it builds from manifestation to Kanye West being the guy everyone thinks of. Because now I love that joke so much because it's so well written and so tightly written, and it teaches you a little bit. So it's like intellectual comedy. We talk about Rene Descartes, the French philosopher. What if he just had dementia? Because his thing is, who am I? And then we start talking about another mental illness, racist schizophrenics. And then you get everyone thinking that I'm about to say Hitler, and I say Kanye West. And that kills the room every time. Like that is my favorite joke. And I think it's just so funny because so many people, I don't know, I just love it. I love that joke. I love that joke so much. It's my favorite one. And that to me was the tightest writing that I've done, where it's like, to me selfishly, it's like the kid in me that got that he should have stopped while he was ahead. Right? That's it's almost the same format as that joke, except I'm saying now Kanye West is the guy. He's mustache, dresses sharp. So it's, I don't know. I think I make the kid in me happy by being able to write a good joke like that. But I love it. But yeah, the best jokes are the ones that kind of take you from a ride. Like we start with the premise, and then we kind of just launch off until now we're at Kanye, and the audience is kind of like, "What the fuck? How did we get here?" But like, also, I followed it very clearly.
Yeah, there is a lot of that you get where you can't. Sometimes I guess you might take the audience for granted in I don't know how to say this right, intellectual levels, and that you still keep them along the story so they remember the last 10 seconds of everything that's been said, so that when you get to the end, it's like, what the fuck did that mean? Oh yes, I've got it. I've got these breadcrumbs back together, and I now know what I'm doing, what I've heard, and why it's funny. Even though I found it funny, but I now know the premise behind it all.
Absolutely, and I think British audiences are very smart. They're very intelligent audiences, but they don't like feeling like they're being talked down to at the same time. So you have to like carry them as in like, hey, this is my experience. You guys know what this is. Boom, boom, boom. Hey, you should look this up. Boom, boom, boom. And then before you get to it, they're like, this guy's an idiot, but this is hilarious. And I love it every time. Yeah. So it's just so much fun. That's my favorite joke. Sorry, go ahead.
Has that changed then over time? Has it evolved into, it's gone from a fairly loose section to then you've tightened it up or removed bits or done things to it?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the joke originally, there was no Kanye West part at the end. It was just racist schizophrenics and brown and black people. We used to put them in institutions. Now we put them in immigration. Right.
Yeah.
And then I had an entirely another bit about Kanye and how Kanye is just Kanye. But also another thing I was noticing is that the Kanye bit on its own, people here they know Kanye, but they don't know Kanye, right? Like in America, the Kanye bit on its own really works. Here, it doesn't. So I realized if I tie these two together and I make you, and because I'm telling you what's crazy about Kanye, I'm telling you he was anti-Semitic, and I'm telling you the joke. I'm giving you the premise in the beginning, and then you get there. So now you really understand it. That was like where I had to like come back and drag it in, and being able to do the launching pad with Rene Descartes and the mental illness thing. I used to use that also separate. So all these jokes were separate. And then I think one day I was like, they should be one big ass joke because it's so funny.
Yeah.
And then now your audience is like, oh wow, that was funny. Oh wow, that was even funnier. Oh my god, that's hilarious. And then so yeah, it had to it was just writing every day and just being like, how can I tie this together? How can this piece, is this connected to this? Like, so let's do it. So yeah, it's been, but they all started out as their own separate jokes. And I think I have videos of myself telling them all separately at different spaces, different comic spaces around London. Yeah. But no, they're all one nice joke now.
So how, with you being having the writing background, how do you go about creating the jokes? How do you start with what's the first thing? What happens in your head?
So I think I always start with a premise, right? Like I think I have a new joke I've been writing now that's about I think the premise always comes to you in your regular life, doesn't it? Like something silly happens or something funny happens. The other day I was on the train and I got off the train at the wrong stop and I got back onto the train, but the only two people on the train were me and this one girl. So it looked weird, right? It looked like I was like trying to follow her or something. So then we both get off at the next stop, which is the same stop, and we start walking the same way, right? And I'm like, okay, now this is creepy. And then I'm like, okay, well, this is scary. And so now I'm walking really slow, trying not to like pass her. But then I had to use the bathroom. So I was like, I have to get home, and there's only one way to pass her. So now I'm walking fast to pass her, and I know it's freaking her out. So I just end up walking by and just saying sorry. But like she has no idea. It was all in my head. She has no idea why I'm apologizing. So she's probably just like, what the fuck? And so you have the premise of American in England, like trying not to be a creep, but also trying to get home. And so now I go down, and everything is, for me, all of storytelling is a 3-act structure. So it's 1, 2, 3. Act 1, I'm on the train. I don't know what to do. I had to hop off, and I'm writing all this stuff. I get off on the wrong train, get back on. Act 2 is that middle part where I'm like, but now you add the stuff to it that would make it funny. So I'm like, I watched a documentary that says if you stare at the thing that you think is scared of you, it will no longer be scared of you, right? So if you keep your eyes on it. So now I'm just staring at the girl, right? In act 2. And then but the other part is I have to pee. Now we have to introduce the peeing part. So now I'm kind of doing a pee dance, and I'm trying to hold that air. So now I'm staring at you, but I'm like weirdly holding the air. It's scarier, right? And then so now we're at the end of act 2. We're like, well, fuck it, I have to pee. So now I'm staring at the girl because I don't want her to know that I don't want her to be scared of me. But now I'm running. So now I'm running and staring at you. And then for act 3 is when you give them pull the chair from under him. So now I get to her, and when I get to her, she reaches into her pocket, and I'm like, no, I'm American. I'm sorry, et cetera, et cetera. I just have to pee. I need to pass you. I don't know what's creepy. And she's like, oh, that's okay. And then she pulls out a knife and it's like, give me your phone, big man. So like, so that's the, So now you took that premise and you made it such a good joke, but it's act 1, act 2, act 3. It's all 3-act structure to me. That's when you're writing a joke, you're doing the same thing. Like you can write a whole screenplay that has 3 acts, beginning, middle, and end. But then even inside of those screenplays, when you're writing a scene, each scene has 3 acts: a beginning, an opening, a middle, a conclusion. And so if you take that into your joke writing, and now you're telling a story, because it's a story. From the beginning of time, all we've done is tell stories. It's what you do. Oh, how was your day at school? Oh man, well, Martha was really mean, and then I went to lunch and that was boring, and now I'm home. You just tell stories. So if you can get the audience's brain to be on this ride with the story with you, and you tell them 4 or 5 stories throughout your 20 minutes or whatever, they're always gonna love it, and they're always gonna laugh because they felt like they were with you. And time flies when you're telling stories. Yeah. So that's my process. You start with the premise, and then you just give me the 3 acts. What happened in the beginning, what's happening in the middle, that's funny, and what's happening at the end, that's different from where we thought we were going.
So how do you then have those 3 bits, and then you start to psychoanalyze every little part of it to then work out what's the joke in that first part or second part or third part?
Yeah, because like the first joke, the overall bit of this, and then like your tagline is always what takes you to your next bit, right? So I think at the end of that joke, I say it really got me thinking about manifestation, which the whole set is about manifestation and like how my dad has dementia. I welcomed it in, and then blah 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 blah. So as long as you can sneak your tag in for your transition, I think people use transitions wrong here a lot early on. I think your transition should always be your tag, right? If I'm giving you the premise early, then I'm letting you turn your brain off as an audience. You know what you're supposed to be thinking about. You don't have to guess. It got me thinking about manifestation, and now I can just tell you the story of how my dad reverse manifests his dementia because he hated surprises, right? And now I'm gonna be like, it got me thinking about mental illness and like where this was. I'm giving you the tag of the next part of the joke, so it's all if you use transitions are such a beautiful thing, but if you use them right, the audience stays with you. It's just how it goes. But yeah, inside in act one, you have to be like, okay, why is this funny? This is funny. This is funny because I'm trying not to be a creep. I'm trying to do the right thing. But in act two, here's how I'm doing the right thing wrong. And in act three, here's how she didn't even care I was doing it. She was actually doing the wrong thing to me. So it's like bang, 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 always. And if you can tighten that, people, that's just storytelling though. That's all storytelling. So
I tell you what, just that little last 2 minutes of you talking, you can tell there's passion in writing.
Oh yeah, so much. You have to write. You have to write. And people, it's the hardest part for people. So not for me because I came from being a writer. So most of my jokes are going to already have that structure. I think a lot of the times when you see open micers or you see those comics and like forcing them like, hey, if you get your pen, because there's people who have the personality, and we're like, man, if you get your pen together, you will be sick with it. But you have to sit down and write. Uh, and that writing's my number one passion though. It's always been, it's always going to be. Writing is the only thing that I can do that you don't need anyone else for me to make happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I can write a screenplay, I can write a joke. I don't need a stage to perform it. I can just write these things down and just hang out with myself all day. And I like myself when it's like that. So,
No, the passion definitely comes through in this. I think it's because that's one of the things is that I rarely, because to me at the moment comedy is it's a hobby, it's a pastime, it's a bit of fun. I have a job that I have to keep going, so that I don't have the 8 hours, 10 hours in a day to sit there and write something out and go and perform it every night and stuff like that. So that's one of the hardest things I find is that my writing happens just as I'm going to sleep.
Yeah. So, I mean, do you have a notepad by your bed?
I don't have the notepad by my bed, but I have the phone by my bed. But then I've realized that now I'm at the point where I'm doing a set tonight, and it's loosely based on what I did at Comedy Incorporated, but some of it's been expanded. And I'm going through these bits in my head going, that's actually quite good. I quite enjoy that. I like that bit. And if I get the phone out and start typing it, it's like, no, now I've got a bright screen. No, and then I'm going to be awake for another hour. So I literally I came downstairs and just grabbed a notepad and just started writing out the bits that I was in my head so I didn't forget them, because everyone has it. You think of something before you go to bed and you wake up in the morning and go, that was really good, but what was it?
Yeah, exactly.
Ironically, that's partly what the routine is about.
Yeah.
It's not remembering things.
Yeah.
So it kind of works in a roundabout kind of way, but there has to be a routine around it that actually brings it together. So yeah, I was downstairs at 1 o'clock this morning going, write this down, and this and this and this and this and this, and you've got that bit. Yeah, right. It's down. I can't forget it. I'll read it before I go to the gig tonight. Do it and see what happens.
Which is pretty great. When I lived in LA, I just had notepads everywhere. I had one in the shower. I had a shower pad with a wet. It couldn't get wet or anything. So if I hadn't thought in the shower, I'd be like, oh fuck, let me write this down, and you could just write. It was so awesome. And then I had notepads like on my bed. My girlfriend at the time she hated it, but then sometimes she would read it and she'd be like, okay, that's really funny. Like I get why you needed to write that down. I'd be like, yeah, see, exactly. But yeah, notepad. That's the writer's trick. There's notepads everywhere because shit is just funny. Life is the funny part of all of this, right? So it's always interesting.
So when you've written something, how often do you gig these days?
Well, shit. I feel like last week I did every single day the last couple of weeks, because now you're kind of getting those semi-pro gigs, semi-pro/pro. So you need to do those, but you also have to do the open mics because the goal is to do an hour in October.
Okay.
So I want to have everything worked out by the time I'm starting to do all that stuff. And then when everyone leaves for Edinburgh, I feel like I'll get a lot more stage time here. So I can really start getting those long work in progress stages that no one's really doing here, which I'm really excited about. But yeah, the end of May till right now, I think I was out every single night. I was hitting the stage. Yeah, I need a break, but I'm going to Brussels. I'm only going to do like 2 nights over there of comedy, and then I'm just going to like write and sleep. It's like a writer's holiday is what I've been calling it. I just need that that break.
Okay. So is there you've got gigs coming up in Brussels?
Yeah. There's 2 clubs near the UN actually that do English speaking comics and I obviously told them my background and I used to work in intelligence and all, so they were just like, yeah, come do it. So it's like, okay, great, let's hang out. But yeah, we got to have some fun there. And then I'm still doing, like, I'll swing through Comedy Incorporated tonight. I'm not on the bill, but it's Steve, so he'll probably let me do like a couple minutes, or Wednesday, sorry. And then Friday I'm at 0569. Sunday I have they just all pop up. They start, your calendar starts to fill out when you're not even trying to, and you're just like, okay, I'm on this one now, I'm on that one. Yeah, so it's really fun.
Yeah, so sometimes, certainly as a starter, it's kind of, it's much easier once you're a little bit more established in the game as such, because people know who you are and stuff like that. But when you're starting out, there's loads of gigs out there, but it's so hard to get gigs at the same time, because you do the whole thing where you apply for a night and they do the rule of, we only reply to those that have been successful. And you're like, okay, cool. Just tell me when you decide who's successful or not, because then if I'm not sitting here waiting for 3 weeks for a gig next month, I can book something else in, just, help me out here.
Yeah, and it would be nice. That would be nice to do that. I think LA has definitely prepared me for rejection a lot more. Just in screenwriting, movie ideas, pitches, your agent, like all the stuff is always, rejection is just part of the game. And I think that just comes with, I think you're right. I think people should, but then, I'm imagining the other side of those promoters. You're getting, if it's a good night, hundreds of emails from people. It's so hard to respond to everyone, right? So it's like, yeah, it's really nice to be like, hey, and it's just simple email, hey, not this time, but maybe next time. And then I think also, but as the organizer, you're already dealing with so much, and now I have to respond to a bunch of comics who aren't actually going to be on the show. It would also you need assistance to do that stuff, I think.
I think my gripe with that is that sometimes you get, some promoters are happy to send out an email to 300 people to say, apply for my night.
Mm-hmm.
In which case, once they've sorted out the lineup, they could send that same email out to the same 300 people and say, if you've heard, you're in. If you're not, unlucky, try again next month. And
That's
then everybody knows they can move on and go. Because I've always had this theory, is I never ever wanted to book 2 nights, 2 different promoters on the same night, because if for whatever reason both of them come back and say, hey, yeah, we'd love to have you on, I'm like, I'm gonna have to let one of you down.
Yeah,
and
but
it looks bad on me,
and you always feel like they're not going to book you again. But I think most guys understand where it's just like, hey, and that's when you always sneak in. You're just like, hey, I got a paid gig this night, I'm sorry. And unless your gig is now turning into a paid one, I would love to do it later on in the future. And then sometimes you can, I've had 2 people book me before. I was like, hey, sorry, this one's paid. And they were like, hey, no, we can give you that. And I was like, oh, okay, great. And I went to the other one. I was like, hey, they paid more. And then I was like, oh, well, we can pay your travel now. And I'm like, oh shit. Okay. And they went to the other one and they're like, and then you end up doing both. So it's just like, okay, you guys just put me on in the second half and you put me on in the first half, please.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I get that.
Yeah, that's cool for the semi-pro. For the open micers, it's like when you're trying to formulate stuff and you're going, okay, I've got 3 nights free a week. I need to fill those 3 nights, and that's it. The rest is family time.
Yeah,
just help me out here, guys. With if you can, even if you put on the form when you fill it in, it says if you haven't heard by the 1st of the month, you're not in. So you maybe try again next month. That's fine. Don't leave me hanging on. That's all. That's always been my biggest thing, but.
Right.
That's my moan, which brings on to a nice little question. What would you like to see change on the open mic circuit? If anything.
That is a great question. From comedians or from the people running the nights? What do you mean?
Go for both?
From comics, I don't know how long I can watch people do the same 5 minutes. And I think coming from LA, and I would say once you nail it, I would love it if you would move on to the next part of year 5. I can't tell you how many times I've gone and I'm like, oh, they're on here. This is going to be really exciting to hear what new they have to say. And it's the same thing. That is very tough for me. But I think that's my background. in LA, again, rare you're going to hear the same 5 minutes unless it didn't go well. So now I've rewritten these jokes to give you that 5. But once you nail it, you put that 5 away because that's going to be part of your longer one, and you're like, okay, let me work on the next section of these jokes. So that to me is always tough. And for the organizer, man, some of these shows are so long. Do we need 25 comedians on a bill a night? That is with a break. I've now seen people are doing 2 breaks. I'm just like, look, guys, it's a Tuesday night. All right, it's free. We're all free to be here. We're all going to pay you $5 to leave. Can we? It's just so long sometimes. Do you ever get in that and you're sitting there and you're like, bro, this is like, I mean, and then for me, not a lot of gigs are in South London, which is why I like Comedy Incorporated. Most of it's in Camden. I live in South. It's like I have to travel an hour here, sit through 3.5 hours of comedy, and then travel an hour back. Some of these shows are just too long, man. That's just it. They're too long.
I cannot disagree with you. I come from a point of view where, especially on the open mic circuit, where you are when it's a bringer mentality, and you have to bring somebody. And for me, I've said it so many times on these episodes, is that I travel in from outside of London. So my journey every time for a comedy gig, like tonight's one, it's only in Old Street Old Street. It will take me 45 minutes on the train if connections match.
Yep.
But that 45 minutes on the train is going to cost me £20 in a train fare. It's going to cost me £10 to park the car at the train station.
Yeah,
so I'm coming in for 5 minutes or 7 if I'm really lucky. But I've also got to convince a friend who wants to come along with me. So they've got to pay £20 on the train. But they've also then got to buy a drink, or they will buy a drink because they're not going to sit there for 2 or 3 hours drinkless.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it may be a case of we have to get some food beforehand because if I've turned up unbelievably early, and you get to the point where it's now 10:30. We're going home. That 45-minute journey on the train is in reality an hour and a half because of the connections at the start and at the end. That person's then not getting home until 11:30, 12 o'clock maybe.
Yeah.
And that's
they're
the
not
point.
A comic.
No, they've come to watch people. They've come to watch their friend and support their friend. And they've come to watch a few other people who they may have seen along the circuit. But ultimately, they're there to see probably 20% of whoever's on the bill. And that person then has to get up for work the next day. So when I say to them, do you want to come to this comedy night? And they go, where is it? Oh, it's the same place as before. The one that ran till 10:30. Yeah. So I can't do it, mate. I need to get up for work in the morning.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Understand that. I completely get it. It's life. You're kind of doing me a favor by coming along and you're being entertained. But I then have to turn around to the promoter and say, I can't do it because I don't have bringer. And the reason I don't have bringer is because it's too long.
Yeah. It's mental. And they should, you know what? One, I feel like there should be a thing to the. It's weird to ask me to bring a bringer who's going to drink at your bar and then ask me for money at the end of the night, where I feel like I should be able to, I would almost pay to not have to bring a bringer, right? Like it would be like, still do your bringer nights for people who live close, but I should be able to just give you 10 quid and bring no bringer. To me, that's how you do it sometimes in LA anyway. And then some of these shows should be 2 shows. There should be a hour and a half that starts at 7, and then an hour and a half that starts at like 9:30 if you want the late show, or 8:30 if you want the late show, 9 if you want the late show, and you can leave. And that way, you split it up. You still get your 3 hours in, but it's 2 different shows, 2 different comedians, and you don't have to have so many people. Especially because what if you go first and now you're just waiting for 3 hours?
Dude, or if you go last.
Or if you go last, which is another mental situation. So I can't. Yeah, I don't even, dude. I started asking people like, how long is that gig? Like, I can't just show up, or just telling people, hey, I think I need to leave early, and that's bad because I like watching comedy, and I do enjoy seeing open mics and seeing the fresh perspectives on things that are out there. But I can't do it at 10:30 on a Wednesday when it's just it's tough. It's tough. That's what I would change.
Yeah,
but
I'm with you on that. I understand the need for bringers and stuff because London is overwashed with open mic nights. There's so many of them on the same night and stuff, but there are so many comedians out there that want to give it a go, and because of that, the only way you're going to get a crowd sometimes is the bringer. But then people do say go through the whole thing of, but if you bring a bringer, then you've got a bigger crowd to perform to rather than just comedians.
Right.
But then inevitably what happens is everybody's bringer
becomes
a comedian.
yeah.
So you're just still performing in front of comedians anyway.
Exactly. It's all shit.
it's a. I don't think there is any perfect. I like the idea of the two halves. I think the two halves is a great idea.
Yeah,
I know there's a couple of nights that do it.
I think Comedy Virgins does like an early show and a late show.
Yeah.
But yeah, you gotta split these things, man, because that is sometimes you'll be looking around like what, and don't be not funny when people are tired, because then it's getting rougher and rougher.
Yeah, I mean, I've been in those situations where you've been the first on, and you're like, okay, now, and you're kind of thinking, can I just leave? And then if you leave and you get spotted leaving, and it just turns into a nightmare.
And then people are just weird about it. I understand it.
I don't even mind. I wouldn't even mind if it was a case of, look, I've got to go early. Here's my $5 for the pot. It's fine. You're welcome to it. If that's the main reason you want everyone to stay to the end is to recoup as much cash as possible, then okay, I can do that without being here. as much as it sounds horrible, I know, because we all want the biggest crowd we can get, and the only way you get that is getting everybody in a room and everybody stays. But an audience that is staying under duress is not a good audience. So I don't know. On a lighter topic, then, you have a level of fame and stuff at the moment. But if things, I guess this could lead into the hour you're talking about later on in the year. If you are to become massively famous, you get a Netflix special or live at the Apollo set or something like that, and the producer says, what walk-on tune do you want when you come onto the stage? What do you pick?
That is great. That is a great question. I love there's a tune by, I think her name's like Elaine Pritchard, and it's called Are You Having Any Fun? But there's a section in there where she's like, are you having any laughs? Are you? I just think it's a funny way to come on, because it's either going to be that or like one of my favorite like hip hop tracks, which would probably be, I don't know, what song just gets me hyped nowadays. I mean, Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us it's everywhere. It's pretty much the song of the summer. You can't even escape it. So I'm between those two.
Okay.
And I like the beat drop in Like That. Have you heard Like That? It's like a Future song with Metro Boomin. There's an insane beat drop where I don't even think I would get the lyrics to it. I would just come on to the beat drop because it's just a producer going dun, 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 dun. It's like a crazy beat drop, which actually I think the last one. Yeah. I think that would be it if I become famous, or maybe I'll be a DJ at the same time. Maybe it would be my own song. Then I'll just decide to do both. In maybe who knows how it will go.
I did wonder actually if your answer to that would have been something to do with Nirvana, because I think every time I've seen you gig,
it had online, a Nirvana shirt on.
You've got a Nirvana shirt on.
Yeah. I really like the material of those shirts. Like they just do them really well. And then people always ask me, do I actually like Nirvana? And I was like, I like when they're referenced in other songs. I just don't know enough about them. But yeah, you're right. I had to start doing that. I just started with, I don't know. But yeah, I do like it.
Go on.
I was just gonna say I do like a Nirvana shirt. I do like, you know what? I almost showed up to this in a Nirvana shirt. That would have been funny. That would have been funny for this moment. For my UCLA sweatshirt.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up on Nirvana, so whenever I see the t-shirts, it's just like this. They're so. It was in the day where there was not much creativity in terms of what went out there. in terms of artistic ability.
Yeah.
It was just that simple font of Nirvana. That's what it is. I don't need to put anything else around it. The band is as raw as it can be. Let's have this raw logo, which is just a typeface. And that was it. Whereas in those days, you used to have like Guns N' Roses who have their Guns N' Roses symbols and stuff skulls, like
that.
Yeah. But Nirvana was just grassroots, simple, straightforward. And whenever I see the T-shirt, because I grew up with it, it just makes me smile.
That's like awesome.
Back to 13, 14 years old again. Like,
yeah, and it's a pretty inexpensive, high quality shirt, which is great, which is what everyone's looking for nowadays,
Yeah, definitely. So we're winding down slowly now. So I'm going to bring you back to the Comedian's Challenge that I set every comedian that appears on this podcast, if they so want to take on the challenge, is to tell a joke from this joke book called The Little Book of Shit Jokes by Sid Finch.
Okay.
And the idea behind it is that you pick a joke from this book and you tell it live on stage, have it recorded and tag us in it. You can do it as a stand. They're basically, you mentioned earlier, they're kind of the dad jokes.
Okay.
So they could, some of them are, I mean, the book title says it all, really. But it's interesting to see how people work these into sets, or whether they do them standalone or something. But you get to pick a joke, but you get to pick it only by page number. So you don't know what you're going to get, and I don't know what I'm going to be giving you until I open a book.
Okay, I'm down. This is fun.
Give me a number between 5 and 95.
47.
47. And if this has already been picked, we have to go again. No,
fresh. Okay.
There's 2 jokes on the page. Would you like joke 1 or joke 2?
Oof. Let's go for joke 2.
Okay. The joke I want you to tell live on stage is, Doctor, I'm worried about my eyesight. You should be. This is a garden centre.
Doctor, I'm worried about my eyesight.
You should be. This is a garden centre.
You should be. This is a garden center. Okay. And does it have to be in that dad joke sense, or can I spin it and put it in? However, just have to say that joke.
You don't even have. I mean, it doesn't have to be a garden center. It can be anything.
Okay.
So long as the premise of the joke is similar.
Yeah.
I've said it before. There's been jokes in here that have mentioned about, oh, my uncle said. It doesn't have to be your uncle. It could be your brother. It could be a mate. It could be anybody. That bit's irrelevant. The joke is the joke, and it's getting that joke premise out.
Yeah, no, that's fun. This is fun. Doctor, I'm worried about my eyesight. You should be. This is okay. I can do that. We can work that in. Maybe I'll try it to Blackout. I'll do it in the first 2 minutes after Blackout and just see what happens.
But the interesting thing is, and you've just done it, is that when somebody's up for this challenge and I read the joke out to them, they immediately stop and pause, and you can see the cogs in their brain going, what can I do with this? What can I do with this? And it's this natural thing in your head going, can I weave it into this section and this? Because I was challenged to do, somebody reverse challenged as such on me. And I had why did the chicken cross the road joke? And I had to, I weaved that into my set in such a way that I talk about in our family, the wife's the serious one and I'm the joker. But if the kids ever want to tell a joke, they'll come to me to tell the joke. So I made the premise that my daughter came to me to tell that joke. And at the end of the set, one of the other comedians came up to me and said, I really love that joke about why did the chicken cross your road? How did your daughter come up with it?
How did your daughter come up with it?
I was just like, I was in a rush, so I didn't.
You couldn't explain everything. Yeah, no, you're just like, she's funny. And then you just ran.
Basically, yeah. It was a funny. It's just kids come out with the strangest things sometimes, don't they? I'm just like, yeah. But I couldn't shatter the guy's illusion.
Yeah. They're funny. That's funny.
But it's that kind of stuff that I think the writing that I try to do anyway is just try to be that little bit humorous and bring it in so that things don't sit on their own. Unless you are a pun teller, one-liner joke kind of thing. And there's some really good ones out there who'd love bits out of this
to
joke.
Do this. Yeah.
Their stuff is better than what's in that joke book.
Yeah. I also don't think. Yeah. Sometimes people get up and they do one-liners, and I'm just like, I could never do that. Like, I don't have that talent.
Yeah.
Which is. I also think you need a British accent to do it. I don't know why. It just in my head, it feels like you need a British accent to tell good one-liners. Like, even when you said "Doctor, Doctor, I'm lost" or whatever, you're in the garden center. You sounded way better saying it than I said. It was just like, no, I can't. I'm gonna have to switch some things up. I don't know why. Maybe that's a personal thing.
It could be. I mean, I don't know, when you see people telling their stories. I'd love to be a one-liner thing. My biggest fear is that I wouldn't remember everything. I think it's harder to remember one-liner jokes than it is to remember a story.
Than tell a story, absolutely.
Unless you can link, because there's a guy that I gig with a fair bit, and he's that one-liner joke. He'll send me like a one-liner or a little bit of 3 lines that creates this one joke. And I say, it's crying out for something else.
Right.
I don't know what that something else is, but it's there. And when you find it, it will work. And the guy, I did a gig with him, and he started with this joke that he'd sent me that I said you needed extra things on. And the joke is something along the lines of, there's a new, I've broached out into a new way of making money. There's a group of people out there that love pastry-based snacks, so I've set up OnlyFlans.
I heard that. Who was that? Mark? Was it Mark Phillip or the bog? I don't know. I think I heard that before from someone.
It's Dean Harmer's his name.
Okay.
And I said it needs something else after that, and he said, I know, I don't know what it is, but then at this gig, the audience have groaned as you would expect them to.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'll give it a rest. They need to make a bit of, they still need to make a crust in this day and age." And I was just like, okay. He's taking it on. And they're like, oh, he said, yeah, I know that was a bit cheesy. And he's like, for heaven, you've done it. You've nailed it.
That's the one I heard. Yeah. Where he goes all the way. Okay. Yeah.
And that link it, having the toppers and everything on there, and then being able to link it into a story, I think it's hugely impressive.
That's where comedy is. That's where it sits, right in that sweet spot of, weird and funny, and you can make it happen.
Yeah. But no. So where can people find you then on the socials and stuff? And I'll put links in the description for you.
Yeah, no. Find me on Instagram at Tev the Writer. It's pretty simple. I'm the only Tevin in England. So that'll be fun. And yeah, I'll be around. Secretly Pissed. You guys can follow that too. It's the Instagram page for the show coming up. Just Secretly Pissed Comedy.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's basically that's what we're doing.
Cool. And you can find us on Instagram to Open Mic Comedy Pod. We're on the W's at openmiccomedypod.com. Whichever platform you're listening to this on, please just go to the follow or subscribe button and hit that if you're not already. You don't want to unsubscribe. Yeah, keep following us. Keep sharing it with friends and family and other comics that people think may be interested in this. And until next time, thank you very much, Tevin.
No, thank you. It was fun.
And until next time, everyone, I'll speak to you all again very soon.